Hello world, welcome to the journalist chat. And today we have a wonderful and we have a distinguished guest from Bangkok and we have a distinguished guest from Nepal. So we believe during the time of a lockdown, creativity is on to lockdown, conversation is on to lockdown, kindness is on to lockdown. So I'll give the floor to the Jeremy Hormer and also Suraj Raj Pandey. So if you both of you guys introduce yourselves to my audience, please.
Jeremy, I think you should do it first.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm a 55-year-old photographer, photojournalist, used to be, when people used to buy magazines. I've been based in Bangkok for the last 19 years, nearly 20 years. Yeah, and I was in Latin America for 6 years before that, and London, and I'm one of the sort of original members of Panos Pictures, as a London-based photo agent.
Oh, great. Suraj.
So let me not reveal my age. I'm very, very young. I'm a Kathmandu-based entrepreneur. I have been involved in a few ventures here, and I'm actively involved in venture building activities in the local ecosystem back in Kathmandu. So yeah, that's it about me.
Yeah,
Not
that's
much.
just super. So we all know the situations of the world. This is like a COVID-19 pandemic, and all the people are tense about the situations. So basically, you started. You had a wonderful guest. We have a wonderful guest from the different country, from the USA and Bangladesh, and before we had a guest from other country. So we had tried to understand the situations of the current context. So Jeremy, if I ask you, what is the situations right now in Bangkok?
Well, we're sort of under a kind of lockdown. It's not a total lockdown. We can go, most businesses are closed. All restaurants are closed, but you can order takeaway food. But you can go out for a walk. Parks are closed. You can go to the supermarket, but it's very tightly controlled with heat recognition sensors as you go in and out. You have to wear a mask. You have to sanitize. Use the alcohol in your hands. It's been quite tightly controlled in Bangkok since the beginning. I think in some respects they've managed it quite well, and I think the statistics are quite good. Relative to some other places. But obviously there are a lot of different criteria as to why that may be. In Asia in general, the numbers seem to be lower. I haven't really heard a good explanation as to why. But here we're hoping to get out of the lockdown within a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, this is a kind of hope from every country and every people's hoping that they'll be able to come out from the home because the situation is very bad in everywhere. So sure, it's still we didn't see the articles about the Nepal. Still we believe that Nepal is okay. So what about the real condition inside in Nepal?
We certainly started testing very lately. So we recently started rapid testing of the victims of the victims of the pandemic. I think so far we have only tested about 7,000 people all across the country. It's a very small number, right? And so far 16 people have been confirmed, and one has already recovered. But the government, including the local bodies in the country, they have started kind of deploying the testing kits all over the country. So we are expecting to see a lot more infections because we've just entered into the second phase of the pandemic where we start seeing local transmissions finally. So so far it's so good, but we are expecting for the worst. The government is preparing for the worst. We've been in lockdown since past 20 to 23 days. The lockdown has been extended for another 10, 11 days. So we are preparing for the worst, and we're definitely there's going to be some news. There's going to be some news. So we've just started testing. Let's see. So far it's so good, under control.
Yeah, I think that will be amazing. Like if the this situations keep continue. I mean, if the governments and the people can able to recovery. So, Jeremy, if I ask you, like I saw the lot of photo you posted in your Facebooks, and you recently returned back from India. So during the situations, and we know that a lot of things gonna change. Even economical conditions is gonna change, and lot ecosystem gonna change. So when you're talking about the communication and reshaping the culture in this context, how do you think so, like in South Asia, in Central Asia, what's going to the change? What kind of communication approach is gonna change?
Communication approach from the point of view of do you mean everybody's
Yeah, yeah,
approach
I'm the
towards
people.
communication?
Yeah, yeah, I'm the people. Cultural approach.
Do you mean how is that going to be restricted by this
Yeah,
this virus spread?
yeah.
Wow, 'cause that's a big question, like, especially in a place like South Asia or India or Bangladesh, etc. I mean, as you
And if you
know,
share, or if you also can share your experience when you was in Bangladesh and experience in India, I think our audience will be happy to listen it more.
okay. Well, as there's very high population density in Bangladesh and northern India, especially. And when this broke out in China, I was in India, and was thinking, like everybody else, how it would be in India, because with people living cheek by jowl, and I read something about the temperature, the virus not being able to be as easily transmitted in higher temperatures. So that gave me hope, not just for India, but for Southeast Asia as well. And I think, that's one turned out to be one of the factors. But then, India, people are very, very friendly, and it's difficult to keep your distance in friendly countries. I think that's been the problem in Italy as well. How it will affect people in the wrong, I think it's too soon to say how this is going to pan out. I just pray that it doesn't impact South Asia, too badly, and that we can move through this and get a workable vaccine going. Yeah, I just pray. I miss being in India. I miss being able to travel around. It just it's all been very dramatic and sudden. I was just there. I was there for most of January, and of course it was before this broke. And I flew back from Ahmedabad to Bangkok, and when I landed back in the airport, there was the carousel next to me at the luggage collection was from Tianjin in China, and there was not many people on the flight. But I remember feeling surprised that they were still allowing flights, and thinking, well, why haven't they shut that down? Because surely, that's how this is going to spread. And I don't want to sound like a smartass, but it turns out that instinct was pretty correct, because most of the spread took place, during those first few days, and the whole world is paying the price for that now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation because this is not the situations any individual country. This is the situations of the world. Sure, so if I ask you, like, you are entrepreneur, so we know that during the situation, especially the entrepreneurs and the business people, they're affected. And so, I mean, how you were thinking about and how you are operating your work and also your business, and what kind of entrepreneurship you are thinking about right now, if it is keep continue.
So we basically started our lockdown for our employees. We started working from home a week prior from the actual lockdown started, because we were very, very scared that this virus might get into Kathmandu and then there might be local transmissions, right? So far we've been working through online platforms like Zoom and Skype and Messenger. So we've been in touch with our team members. I think every business, maybe small or big, they're functioning virtually, except for groceries or like food related or emergency related services. Everything else is halted. So we're also very skeptical about uh, like getting that normal economy back right after the lockdown ends, because a lot of big banks and big corporations are there. around the world, they are projecting that we might face one of the worst economic recession of the history. So Kathmandu being the center, like the economic center of the country,
And
we
also
are
one of the tourism spot. Yeah.
that's one of the most important tourism spots. There was a report recently that Nepal will probably lose 1.5 billion worth of tourism revenue in the following years. I think it's in a year, right? So we're prepared to take the blow because like everyone else is doing that, and we have no other options left. But definitely, the ecosystem has been very very active. Senior mentors, they are coming together to help startups, especially with everything that they can provide: mentorship, logistics, finance. So we're making sure that no startup dies during this pandemic, and we're also trying to innovate ways to properly utilize local resources to create solutions, so that people can use those solutions after the pandemic ends, after the lockdown ends. So the basic focus is to create an economy, a local economy that is very strong and self-sustaining for the time being. Because we are expecting a global trade halt after the pandemic, because people are not willing to travel, people are not willing to trade with each other. So we are trying to create an economy, a local economy that is self-sustaining and very strong.
Yeah, I think that would be okay, because every country they are trying to be dependent on their own economy, because even in here in Bangladesh right now there's a lot of problems going on, and because 85% of our economy is dependent on the R&D sector. But when this problem started, and in the meantime the lot of development countries and a lot of buyers, they already cancel their order. So this is a
Mhm.
kind of horrible situation so we are waiting to face. So and Jeremy, if I ask, like in Bangladesh, there's a few of the journalists is also affected in around the world, and right now the 64,000 journalists, they are right now in the front liner, and they're working around the world and during the situations. So how do you think, so as a photographer you are, because we know the photographer need to go to in the spot and to cover something, and or any, I mean, when you do the project, so you need to go to the spot to do, it's not something virtually can do. I don't know, like myself is not a photographer, so if you describe these emergencies and how you describe, or what will be measures you're going to taking right now.
Well, first of all, I'm not covering this situation, and it's not
Yeah.
I used to. I mean, 20 odd years ago, I used to sometimes do news stories, things like
Yeah.
this. I would be assigned by UNICEF or to
Yeah.
cover situations like this. But right, I haven't done that sort of work for quite a long time. I tend to work on long-term projects, book projects. So it's not really something that I'm focused on to go out and shoot, to be
Yeah.
honest. So I'm sort of here with my family. I'm just complying with the lockdown rules. I'm not really, to be honest. I'm not, obviously it needs to be reported, and take my hat off to those people who are reporting it from the front line, the important events. Um, Here in Thailand, I don't really see it as being, I think it's a hopefully, and it seems to be a relatively little affected. I mean, obviously, it's affected people. It's affected every country, but compared to, for a news story, for, people like in Italy or in Wuhan, with people, on hospital beds queuing up to go into, outside the hospital, overflowing, and all those sorts of images. That it's obviously important to tell that story, usually with TV cameras these days. But so anyway, it's not something that I've approached doing. So in terms of my work, it's really been debilitating, because I'm just stuck at home, and editing is the thing that editing and planning for when this is over, to go back and continue with my work in India and in Morocco, which are where my two projects are. But yeah, I'm also
Yeah,
using
I mean,
some
I'm talking about, like even though you are working inside the home, so during the time of lockdown, but after the situations, because before you frequently move, or the people, those who are working like you, and they're frequently move, and so the before the schedules, and before that, you don't need to be cautious about the public health. I mean, so after the COVID-19, and what it will be? I mean, what kind of extra or special care you will take when you will go to the spot or any country you're gonna visit?
Well, that's a good question. It completely depends, where you're going to go. Well, first of all, I will look very carefully at what's been happening in whatever country I go to, and see how they've dealt with this. I will avoid going to China for various reasons, because I think a lot of trust in the trade between China and the rest of the world over this. I think it's a game changer. I think that everything is going to be redefined economically. Airlines, tourism, and I think what Suraj was saying about Nepal creating its own more self-sufficient economies, I think you're going to see that a lot around the world, and I think that that's potentially in the long run a good thing, because I think having this dependency on China is proving to be have its limitations, to say the least. It leaves us all in a vulnerable position. So caution, to answer your question more specifically, a lot of caution. I'm sort of nervous about getting on an aeroplane, because generally I've been very lucky in not getting ill in my life, but there was one time when I do get some congestion or something, is when I'm on a long haul flight. The best times they seem to be sort of incubators for germs. So I noticed that I'm trying to avoid that. For everybody's sake, until we've got clearer answers about this. I mean, there are still huge questions about how we're all going to come out of this, how it's going to be safe for us to restart our activities. I mean, for example, why are so many people dying in Europe and in the United States, relative to Asia? Or do we even know that much? To what extent can we rely on the statistics, which in themselves are often misleading?
Yeah, so sure. So there's one of our audience comments. So there's a question. I'm reading this question. The main controversy which has been raising all over the world about coronavirus as a biological weapon by China. What is your point of view for it? Do you think that China did it on purpose or else, or there are other stakeholders for this? Sure, and just you answer, then I'll jump to the German, please.
That is a very controversial question in the first place, because you really can't say, right? And I really don't think that this is the time to play the blame game. So this is not a very good time to shift the blame on one country. This is a time of crisis. We should all come together. We should all support each other and then get out of it. Obviously, if there has been any use of a biological weapon against any country or any demographics of people, then it should be investigated. But this is certainly not the right time, and I'm certainly not the right person to talk about it, because there are more important people who are going to do that job. But this is not the best time to talk about it. We should rather focus on preventing the spread of the virus and keeping each other safe. That's my answer.
Yeah, Jeremy, and the last few days we saw that Donald Trump said this is this is a Chinese virus, and in the meantime we also said China also blamed this is virus came from the USA. So in this blame game, do you think who will play the roles as a global peacemaker? And because we all the time know that whenever crisis happen, the people, the development country, they come forward to solve the problems. But in this blame game, who can play the role and how they can play more?
Well, I think there's really only one truth. There are different versions of the truth according to who you speak to. But China expelled international journalists. It clearly misled Taiwan, and covered up at a crucial time what was happening, along with the collusion, it seems, of the WHO. So there are serious questions that I think need to be posed by international journalists, investigative journalists, towards China. The problem is it's a faceless government of multi-billionaires who, how many Chinese politicians can you name besides Xi Jinping? If you ask that question around the world, it's a monolith. It's an inaccessible monolith. So
Yeah.
it's not right. China is, I don't know how many million people, 55, 68 different ethnic groups. It's not to criticize China as a system. It's not a racist thing to do. I think there's a misconception people have who perhaps haven't been to China. A lot of the racism has actually come from the Chinese government towards minorities within China, like the Tibetans, like the Uyghurs. So I think it's important to hold the people responsible to account instead of, and a lot of people, there's a consensus that 90% of this spread came at the beginning in those first critical days, and that was when the cover-up between the WHO and China happened, and Taiwan was doing everything it could to alert the world to this. And I think serious questions need to be asked by investigative journalists about who is responsible, and let them give their answers and be held to account. I wouldn't like to say whether it's been done intentionally or not, or actually, I doubt it. But the people responsible need to be held to account. And it's all very well for us to criticize our leaders, but what I have noticed in the international media is how willing and how much of the media in America and in Britain, my country where I'm from originally, are willing to attack their own leaders and criticize them. And how little, relatively, criticism is being leveled at China, because there is no one that they can go to a press conference, perhaps, and direct their questions or their accusations at, because it's a monolith.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about that. Like for my next sessions, I already talked with one of the person. Definitely, if he will be okay, and he's one of the scientists who has been working in China for a long time, and I'm trying to plan to make a roundtable discussions based on and between one of the scientists working in China and one of the journalists in South Asia. And I hope so later on you can see, and then we'll find the answer. So sure, if we talk about like even the most of the Bangladeshi people, and last few years we saw that they used to travel to Nepal, and we know that this is one of the beautiful area and has a wonderful culture. And so that, and in these circumstances, in your government, do any kind of extra plan for the tourists, or how they will operate their tourism system? Because you said that like there's a lot of independency plan is going on, a lot of things going to be projected. So, and what kind of measure plan your government are doing?
To be very honest, regarding saving the tourism industry, there has not been much effort, because whatever resources our government has, or the state has been has been allocated towards the pandemic itself. So I'm not sure, but I don't see a very good time ahead for the tourism industry of Nepal, because it's a virus, right? It can spread anywhere from anyone to anyone, right?
Yeah.
So people are scared to travel, and people are scared to come in contact with strangers. So there's a report that came out from Harvard yesterday. It said that we might have to actively practice social distancing till the year 2022, right?
Yeah.
So I would not be, like Jeremy said, I would not be comfortable sitting in an aircraft packed with strangers. I don't even know. There might be a virus, right?
Yeah.
So people will not travel, and the tourism industry in Nepal is certainly going to take a big hit, a very, very big hit. But so far, there has not been any contingency plan that has been planned to save the tourism industry, because, as I said earlier, the resources has been directed towards the pandemic itself. But the government is definitely urging the locals, people like us, local people of the country, to travel domestically. So that would at least minimize the impact that's going to, come across the tourism industry. But I don't see a very good foreseeable future for international tourism in Nepal, at least for a year or two.
Yeah, I think because you know the situations which is going on, even nobody knows because this is unknown situations. So if I ask to the Germany, like right now the situations around the world is very bad, and most of the time the development country, you all the time talk about the development countries to come forward, and in this context, and how do you think so? I mean, what about your opinion? How development country will work and will functions as a globe, as a contributing with the country to the like the underdeveloping country? And do you think they're gonna do, or even we saw that even in Bangladesh, one of the print media they're going to close because of this COVID-19 epidemic directly affected, and because it is affected to the journalist and also the economy. So do you inform like anything's happening in Bangkok and also in your country, even the print media industry?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, I'm not aware of I mean, most printing in the world, is dominated by China again. I mean, the mechanics of it, the printing inks, books are some huge percentage of books are printed in China. There's a huge dependency on China for so many things. So, um, like I said before, I think this is a game changer. I think people are going to have to rethink things like profit for quality of life, because if you can't depend on, let's say you have a factory in China right now, it's problematic to say the least. And if you need to guarantee deliveries to your clients, and it's the same, if you're a book printer or a book publisher, or if you're making computer parts for mobile phone, or you need to be able to guarantee those things. And if the relationship with China is going to threaten that, and I think it might, because of the mistrust that's been created, and I think that I don't see China working terribly hard to recreate that trust.
Yeah.
To be
If
honest,
I
and
added the questions like the most of the people are talking about after right after like after the situation of the COVID-19, the media industry, for the frame of international media agency or the frame of media is going to be changed, and there's a lot of things going to be changed even during even in the process of a telecast, and also the role of media. So, and how do you think so in this perception, in this context?
well, the role of media, I mean, it's already changed because social media has become so the predominant means by which people get their information. So I mean, I don't know the statistics, but everybody's on their phone all the time. Either on most people get even their news feeds through their Facebook page without necessarily having even an online subscription. So physical newspapers, physical magazines, and even books have been largely impacted, hugely impacted by that. Although there is something of a nostalgic return, I think, to it. And the problem with that is who is the editor? Who's controlling this information? Even by selective editing on an interview, on a video, you can basically change the message that was intended entirely just by selective editing. So it's very, very dangerous. It's very difficult to know what to believe when you're watching videos
Yeah.
or reading articles on the internet. What has really gone through trustworthy editorial filters like there used to be, at all the major newspapers around the world. We've lost that on the internet. And a lot of the reputable newspapers have, I think their standards have declined inevitably because the funding has declined, because the
Yeah.
advertising revenue is not there. So the standard has dropped. So you can't afford to have 15 sub-editors fact-checking everything. You can't afford to send a correspondent somewhere for 3 weeks to investigate a story anymore. The funding isn't there.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a
and this
problem
is a
for
fact.
democracy.
Yeah, yeah, this is a fact that is going on. Even the freelance journalists, those who are working, right? I mean, like us, and we are also facing that kind of problem because, I mean, today and the year started, the one of the boat like reaching the shoreline in the Teknaf, and we all know that like 30 Rohingya dead and around 392 Rohingya rescued. So in this context, actually, it is very tough. Suppose I'm trying to go and trying to cover and try to capture, but because the Cox's Bazar is a lockdown, so I'm not able to go. Even the previous discussions, the media people, when they are on board, they're talking about the rumor, self-censorship, and the propaganda is going on because nobody know the exact source. So in this context, I think media also face the huge problem. So sure, as if I ask you, like the country Nepal, Bhutan, and the neighboring country like Bangladesh. So I think, do you think the countries, the South Asian countries, they should be aligned or they should be sit together to solve problems, or they should be? How do you think how they can develop their communications and how they can work together? Do you think it's needed right now?
Yes, it's highly needed because the countries that are, I would basically talk about the SAARC, South Asian Association for the Regional Cooperation, right? Uh, we have India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka. So I think that should happen, and the initiative has been started by the prime ministers, the like the executive heads of all the states. Before the lockdown started, all the countries in the region they pledged certain amount of money to a fund that will help the needed countries with necessary supplies and resources to fight the pandemic. And this is a humanitarian crisis. There is no question as to should we work together or not, right? Yes,
Yeah.
this is a humanitarian crisis. We should definitely work together. Even if there is a if there is a need for North Korea and the United States to work together, they should work together because this
Yeah.
is not just about politics. This is not just about the fragile ego that we have. This is about humanity, and the crisis is for everyone. The
Yeah.
virus will not identify us as a Bangladeshi or an American or a
Yeah.
Nepali
No
or a North
discriminations.
Korean, right? There is no discrimination. So I think
Yeah.
everyone should uh, put up every resources that they can put up to fight against this pandemic. And whatever is the ego factor, like the politics, the reason, whatever is the factor, should be kept aside. We should all come together. Definitely, the countries in SAC should come together and fight this, because without
Yeah.
each other's back, will not be able to defeat it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Uh,
countries in this region they lack resources big time.
Thank you, Jeremy. And we know that I think we don't have too much time, so we are going to ending the show. So if you say something to the audience, to my audience, and to the world, and what you will say, and what's right now, what's people need to do, and during the fight with COVID-19, within a short.
Um, do as you're told. I think, just try to get adjust your mindset to a relatively boring life, and try to find things to do that are safe at home. Read books and learn about things. Find the truth.
Yeah.
Explore the truth instead of don't just go along with what people say, because it's not necessarily been fact checked. Do
True.
your own digging. Find make
Yeah.
your own look into things, peel off the layers, find out the truth about the matter. Instead of just reading headlines, which can be clickbait. Which can be very misleading.
Yeah, this things is happening. So sure, as I know you are the youngest of the Nepals, and the lot of people motivated by you. So if you are, and how you are passing your home quarantine, and if you say something to the audience, to the Bangladeshi young, please, and what will be your message to the Bangladeshi
Uh,
audience and also young people from Nepal?
Number one, stay home. Do not get out. It's not time to be like brave or go out and try some stunts. Stay home. That's the bravest thing that you can do, because I see a lot of youngsters in Nepal as well as in Bangladesh. Because I have a lot of friends in Bangladesh. I often check the social media. A lot of people are out in the streets. Like, I don't know why. So the bravest thing that you can do is to stay home. And personally, I've been learning coding. I'm not a very good programmer. Although I come from a technology background, I was not never a very good programmer. So I learned Python this lockdown, become pretty good at it. And I've been
Yeah.
doing my work, like I've been working on my college assignments. I've been working from home with my team members. I've been checking up with my friends. Also, been helping few people who are in need of support around my locality with food supplies and some, like necessary resources. So I think that's pretty much that you can do. Keep yourself safe, keep your
Yeah.
family and friends safe, and do whatever you can to fight this pandemic. And stay
Yeah,
safe.
thank you. Yeah, thank you, both of you guys. Thank you, both of you, to be here. So I feel and we believe like creativity is on lockdown, love is on lockdown, and kindness is on lockdown. And we believe one day Jeremy will be able to visit every country and without any kind of precautions or without any kind of extra fear. And Suraj will be able to visit in Bangladesh. And thank you, both of you, to be here. And I feel all those who are watching this show, I think everyone, this is one of the options, the only option we have. This is stay home and stay safe, because this
True.
virus doesn't feel any kind of discrimination to the color, country. And thank you very much. And I think this is a time to live together. This is a time to work together, fight together. Bye
True.
bye.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you both. Thank you.
Same here.